Hello everyone, this is James Brandon McKenzie again. Today my blood sugar is a gloriously high 204 because I've had a bad diabetic day, but don't let us stop this. Once again, I want to disclaim, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a doctor. Sorry, let me adjust my camera there. I'm not any sort of certified expert, I'm just a guy with type 1 diabetes hoping to help others with questions, comments, anything that I might experience. I wanted to explain my camera. It shakes a little bit because when I move it, it still won't come on. I guess as good as it's getting. Whenever I move it, shakes because it tries to autofocus. I'm sorry, it is what it is. That's all I got, so let us get straight to it. This is the section where I want to talk about diabetes, actually. Some of the symptoms, the difference between type 1 and type 2, diabetes mellitus, type 1 and type 2, not diabetes insipidus, that's a whole other diabetic thing where you drink a lot of water because you're urinating all the time without sugar. It's not type 1 or type 2, it's a whole other thing, not related to the diabetes people think of. And speaking of which, when people talk about diabetes, they're almost always thinking that it's diabetes type 2. That is the insulin-resistant type diabetes. It affects 90 to 95% of all known diabetics in America, of which there's a few million, possibly up to 10 if I remember correctly, but I'm not sure. I'm not that type of diabetic. Everybody in my family who is a diabetic is a type 2, but I am not a type 2 diabetic. I'm actually type 1, and that's different from a type 2 diabetic. Like I said, for a type 2 diabetic, it's because they resist the insulin their body puts out. It's brought on by many factors. Obesity is believed to be the leading cause of it. It could just be you are prone to it genetically. You just might not. There's several factors, but it's believed to generally be because of your weight. Because really, the heavier you are, the more you resist your insulin anyway. So for type 2 diabetics, it's sedentary lifestyle, eating habits, weight, genetics, lots of things. For me, I'm type 1, so that doesn't affect me, though being heavy does resist my insulin that I have to inject, which leads me to type 1 diabetics. We just don't produce insulin. We don't produce enough, or we just don't produce any at all. Well, type 2 diabetics, they could have complete insulin resistance, so that's a whole other thing. But type 1s, we don't produce the insulin we need, whether we produce little to none at all. That's type 1 diabetics lifestyle. Oh, it's... let me push up my chair. Okay, that's going to have to work. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about the symptoms about it. And the symptoms are pretty much general for all diabetics. They might happen longer in type 2 diabetics, like over a longer period of time, like years. But type 1 diabetics, it might happen really quick. So, but the causes are pretty general. The diabetics, increased urination. Now, that's a pretty big one. You'll be going to the bathroom no matter what, a lot. Which leads to increased thirst. It's not that you drink a lot and so you urinate a lot. You urinate a lot so it makes you thirsty. You urinate a lot so it makes you thirsty. That's because your body's trying to flush out protein and sugar because it's trying to dump it, so you get really thirsty. You will be sleepy, very tired. Lots of diabetics get very tired. I know if I'd go to my parents and eat a sandwich, I'd be out for 3 or 4 hours. I couldn't drive, anything like that. And personally, I had a feeling of drunkenness. Like, if I drank like 5 or 6 beers or something, I would be very detached. I don't know if it's true for all diabetics, but it's true for this diabetic. That's what happens when my blood sugar is high. That's the symptoms of hyperkeratosis, or hyperglycemia. I'm sorry. Keratosis doesn't even exist as far as I know. Hypoglycemia. Hyperglycemia. High blood sugar. But I wanted to talk to you guys about the treatments as well. Type 2 diabetics, you can actually prevent it theoretically, or at least treat it and possibly reverse it with strict diet and exercise and metformin. Diet, because the more crap that you eat and the higher sugar you eat, the more likely you are to become insulin resistant, especially at heavy weight. Lifestyle, if you don't exercise, you just don't lose blood sugar that easily. If you exercise, your blood sugar goes down naturally. It helps you digest and metabolize, and there's other benefits to it too. Don't let diabetes be the reason why you exercise. And metformin because it helps reduce insulin resistance in type 2 diabetics. However, metformin is useless for type 1 diabetics who have to control it through, well, they have to control it through diet too, because that's, let me introduce you to the blood meter. I'm sorry. This is my blood meter, and all diabetics use this, especially if you're type 1, before you eat, sometimes after you eat, generally when you wake up in the morning, and generally when you go to bed at night, just to be sure that when they're doing stuff like taking their insulin, they're not taking too much or too little. Brings me to insulin. This is my fast-acting insulin, Novolog. What this does is I use it before I eat, and sometimes after I eat, depending on if I didn't count out my carbs correctly, because I have to count my carbs, and then I administer the correct amount of insulin to counteract it. Sometimes when you're sick, you use a little bit more. Sometimes I use it when I notice my blood sugar is just high anyway. Usually you can feel when your blood sugar's off. Don't always go by that, though. If you're feeling good, generally because you're used to being at that level of your blood sugar. When I was diagnosed, I think my blood sugar was normally in the 350 range, and I felt good at 350. When it went to like 125, I felt like crap. I was experiencing low blood sugar effects. Either way, hell, it was at 175, I felt like that. So, either way, this is my fast-acting insulin. Mine comes in a pen. I'd rather get the pump, but that's its own squabbles. And I'll explain a little bit more. Well, no, I won't, because I don't have one, so I can't really explain about it. But the pen, you inject it into your body. I inject mine primarily into my gut, because you got a lot of good fat there. It absorbs pretty well. I've heard of people inject it behind the arm or in the leg. Oh, you can't see my legs. I'm not going to flash them on screen. So, that's how that insulin works. But I do take one other insulin, the Atlantis, and it says Solo Star, but I don't know if that's part of its name. I really don't think so, because it's not on all my pens. This is my long-term insulin. I take this once a day, 37 units. It's probably, in all truth, I probably don't take as much insulin as other diabetics. I've heard of other diabetics just taking enormous amounts of insulin compared to me. This one I use when I go to bed, primarily. I can take it anytime. Well, I take it before I go to bed because apparently when you go to sleep, your blood sugar rises. This gives me one long, slow dosage of insulin throughout the night to keep my blood sugar down. And that covers it for insulin. But, diet and exercise is something I have to mandatory. I can't just go out and eat like 15 pieces of cake, 3 sodas, and hope that insulin is going to save my life. I will end up in the hospital doing something like that. I don't know, but, just don't do it. It's bad for you and your kidneys. So, moving on, I wanted to talk about, well, there's actually, some type 1 diabetics get pancreas implants. And I wanted to talk about that later with other alternative treatments of type 1, so I'll leave that for later. Two very super important methods of treating your diabetes. One is when I was diagnosed, I was sent to a diabetic nurse counselor, or counseling nurse. And I have to tell you, I believe she's the one who saved my life. I mean, diabetics for years have been not having these, usually they went to programs, stuff like that. But I gotta tell you, it was so nice having one person who's generally also a diabetic, and mine happened to be a female, she was willing to work with me, explain everything to me that I needed to know, took all the time, made sure I knew exactly what I was doing, things that a doctor would do, but it was just so nice having somebody that specialized in it. Because a doctor, like my general doctor, my family doctor, she's like, oh, I know some about diabetes, your mom's a diabetic, but you know what, I'm going to send you to this specialist because I just don't know enough about it to be comfortable to issue all this stuff. It was just so nice having this specialist. Now, my doctor sent me to her, but she also sent me to 2 other doctors. A cardiologist, because generally heart disease and diabetes go together. They don't cause one another, but generally the same lifestyle that causes type 2 diabetes tends to cause heart disease too. Sedentary lifestyle, bad eating habits. And an endocrinologist that obviously they work on your endocrine system. Mine gave me cholesterol pills, because my cholesterol also is terrible. They test my feet, make sure I can feel everything. And hopefully will sign off on giving me a blood pump or an insulin pump. The nurse counselor gave me the paperwork for it, but my endocrinologist has to sign off on it. I sure hope to God they give one to me. It'd be so much nicer than carrying around pens that stick in my pocket. Sometimes I pull the cap off of, then I have to carefully try to pull them out of my pocket or carry an extra bag for them or something. It'd be nice just to have this discreet pump that I could just use. Oh my god, it'd be so nice. So, but that's the endocrinologist and the cardiologist and your diabetic counseling nurse. Make sure, just get one. If you can't find a program, if your insurance will pay for it, so I think some programs will offer help for free. I did want to explain low blood sugar. So, as long as we're talking about insulin, sorry, I'm getting over a cold. I had a shakiness. When you have low blood sugar, you shake, you have headaches, your stomach hurts. I felt numb. I wrote them all down, I'm sorry. I would sweat. I really would sweat. I just sweat. Back of my neck, top of my head. My hands would. And they were cold and clammy, too. My hands were cold and clammy. I'd press them up against my face. It would just be cold. It didn't make sense. And I don't know if this affects all diabetics, but I know it affects at least my mother when she has low blood sugar. And me, is I get really hungry. Extremely hungry. I could not stop eating unless I just ran out of food or somebody told me to stop eating. So, there's that too. Now, this ran much longer than I wanted it to. I wanted to do this in very short stints, explain little bits, pieces here, pieces here and there. And this one ran about 12 minutes. So, I wanted to announce the next part. I want to work on living with diabetes for me in the next one. And like I said before, questions, comments, want to call me out on something, maybe I got something wrong, maybe I got lots of things wrong. I wanted to share this with you. Please share with me. And you know what? Alright, have a good day. Hope your diabetes management's working a hell of a lot better than mine. Bye.